All right, good morning to all of you guys. Happy Tuesday. Today is June 21st. It's about 10:10 in the morning. Today, we're going to go through different disclosures. Today's disclosure part 5. Today, we do have a short part 4. Oh, wait, part 4. Sorry, part 4. I apologize, part 4. Today's going to be, we do have a short class. Eddie and I do have a commitment at 11:15, so we got to call it short. We do apologize for that. But again, I'll do my best to go through every single disclosure that we need to talk today. And last week we discussed the contingency removal. Okay, contingency removals are it's pretty much your plan B for the buyer or for the seller when it comes to the purchase or the selling of their home. And today is going to be our topic. Okay, so let me start sharing my screen. And here we go. Hey, Gloria, good to have you with us, Gloria. All right, so again, contingency. Okay, so again, keep in mind when it comes to a contingency removal. Okay, again, there's no limit how many you could have on a transaction. Okay, you could have 1, you could have 2, and as many as you want. Okay, you can remove contingencies as you go, but as you may know, okay, per contract, okay, per the RPA or any purchase contract, okay, the buyer has how many days? Has 17 days after acceptance to remove all inapplicable contingencies, okay, related to that transaction. Okay, now if you guys actually took notes last week, there's the 6 major contingencies that we always want the buyers to remove. And if you know, please raise your hand, say it out loud. So if I'll pick on Roy. Roy, I believe you took notes last week, Roy. There were 6 items the buyer needs to remove. You're muted, brother.
I know. I just put the thumbnail away so I could see the PDF. You said, what was the question again?
Yes. So when it comes to the buyer to remove all contingencies, okay, which are the 6 items, right, that the buyer needs to remove?
Well, from what I wrote down, let's see, the 6 items of contingencies are the disclosures, the reports, inspection, investigation, appraisals, and loans.
Exactly. Yes. So those are most likely the items that most likely they have to be removed. Okay, when it comes on the transaction. So it's actually disclosures, inspections, investigations, right? Appraisal, and reports and loan, right? So again, keep that in mind. Again, you may remove them as you go, right? Or you can wait after the 17th day to remove them all at once. Okay, or in other cases, you always wait until you have everything fully lined up, right? And you feel fully satisfied. Then yes, the buyer can remove all contingencies. But again, the buyer must remove them in writing. Okay, you cannot say, well, Freddy, I want to wait to the end of my close of escrow. No. Because if you go back to the RPA, okay, let me bring the RPA, the purchase contract agreement. There's a paragraph on page paragraph 14. Let me see, where's my RPA? That it stipulates that the buyer will remove in writing. Okay, and here we are. Okay, so actually, let me go back to my RPA and let's go to page, I believe page or paragraph 14. So it's going to be page 10, 14B 3. Okay, where it says and it stipulates right there, buyer shall, by the end of the times specified in paragraph 3L, or as otherwise agreed, deliver to seller a removal of the applicable contingency or cancellation of this agreement, called form CR or CC. However, if any report, disclosure, or information from which the seller is responsible, other than those paragraph 11A or 11B, is not delivered within the time frame, okay, time specified, paragraph 3N1, the buyer has 5 days after delivery of such items of the time specified in paragraph 3L, whichever is later, to deliver to the seller a removal of the applicable contingency or cancellation of this agreement. So again, buyer has, right, by the end of time specified in 3L, right, deliver to seller a removal of applicable contingency or cancellation. Okay, so again, So there's no way, well, Freddy, it doesn't say I never signed. Guess what? Your buyer did. And this is page what? Page 10. And your buyer will most likely initial right here. So by your buyers initialing on every single page, it means they have read, fully comprehended, and understand, right, what needs to be done on every single paragraph of the purchase contract. So there's no way around it. Well, we're not going to remove my contingencies. No, it says right here, folks. So please keep that in mind. Paragraph 14, right? B3, right? And then actually 14 it says, right, time periods, removal of contingencies, cancellation rights, right? And it says right there, the following time periods may only be extended, altered, modified, or changed by mutual agreement. Any removal of contingencies or cancellation under this paragraph by either buyer or seller must be exercised in good faith in writing, right? CAR form CR, which is your acronym for contingency removal, or CAR form CC, which is your acronym for cancellation of a contract. Okay, so now let's go back to our contingency removal number 1. So number 1 right there, right? So again, this is going to be followed by your purchase agreement or any other, or request for repairs or other, right? Between on the property, on the data, the offer, the property address, between the buyer and the sellers, right? Right there. So again, number 1, buyer's removal of buyer's contingencies. With respect to any contingency or cancellation rights, the buyer removes, unless otherwise agreed in a separate written agreement between the buyer and seller, buyer shall be deemed to have completed all buyer's investigations to remove reports and other applicable information and disclosures elected to proceed with the transaction, and assume all liability, responsibility, and expense, if any, for repairs, corrections, or any inability to obtain financing. Waiver of statutory disclosures is prohibited by law. Now, which ones are your statutory disclosures? Those are your lead base, TDS, SPQ. Lead base, TDS, SPQ, and also the ESD, if the seller is exempt. Okay, the buyer cannot waive those disclosures. Okay, number 2, buyer removes only the following individually checked buyer's contingencies. Okay, number 1, the loan. B, appraisal. C, inspections of property, paragraph 3LC, 8C, and 12. 1, entire buyer's investigations contingency, paragraph 12. Only the part of the investigations related to the inspections concerning physical attributes of the property, paragraph 12B, or 3, right? All buyer's investigations other than physical attributes, paragraph 12B and 3, right? Entire buyer's investigations continue except, right? Review the seller's documents, right? The title report, preliminary report, right? Common interest HOAs, right? Which is our homeowners associations, CCNRs. Review of lease or lien items, right? Maybe they have some rent rows, tenant stoppos, correct? So that's on a multi-unit property. Other, anything else? Or and the last one is the sale of buyer's property, CAR form COP, contingency of purchase. COP is your acronym for contingency of purchase, right there. Okay, enter into a contract or the close of escrow of buyer's property or other. Or you go skip 2, right, and go to 3 and select here, right, and it says all except, okay, loan, appraisal, and maybe the close of buyer's property. So right here you're saying I'm going to remove my inspections, my investigations, the reports, but I'm going to leave intact in effect my loan, my appraisal, and maybe also the selling of my home, right? Or you could forget about 3 and you could go all the way to number 4. Okay, so by putting 4, you're saying that buyer has fully satisfied him or herself, right? When it comes to remove all applicable contingencies from inspections, investigations, disclosures, reports, appraisal, and loan. That's it. The buyer has reached the point of no return. By the buyer putting number 4 here and signing below, right? Once all contingencies are removed, whether or not buyer has satisfied themselves regarding all contingencies or receive any information related to those contingencies, right? Buyer may not be entitled to the return of buyer's deposit if buyer does not close escrow. This could happen even if, for example, buyer does not approve of some aspects of the property or lender does not approve buyer's loan. Okay, so what can happen if the buyer cannot close the escrow? Well, most likely they will lose the deposit, right? And what is the deposit? Well, that's a good deposit that was put up front into escrow. And most likely, in a lot of terms, it could be up to 3% of the sales price, right? So if they're buying a property that is actually 500,000, most likely they will lose up to 15,000, right? Just like that. Okay, once they remove all contingencies. Now, what if your buyer needs time to extend their contingencies? She just play dumb and say, you know what, well, tomorrow, I'll get it by tomorrow. You know, I haven't gotten the buyer has not obtained the loan approval. So tomorrow, no. There are proper ways and proper protocols to follow to extend a contingency. And there's also a form for that to use. And that CAR form is CAR form ETA. CAR form ETA. Okay, and let me bring it up to you guys. Let me search it, ETA. And that's your extension of time addendum. Okay, close this real fast. Okay, they can go through. So this is the form you guys want to use when you need to extend either your contingencies, your escrow, or any other extension, or anything additional terms you want to add on the actual purchase, on the transaction. Okay, so again, this is your extension of a time addendum. Okay, the following terms and conditions are hereby incorporated and made part of the what? The California Purchase Agreement, Manufactured Home Purchase Agreement, probate. Okay, well, there's some more probates, or residential income properties, vacant land, commercial, business, and or other, right? And again, when was the purchase agreement dated? Well, 6/13, right there. Property address between the buyer and the seller. Now, what do we want to do? We want to use number 2, right? We need time an extension of contingencies, right? The following contingency is, if checked, are extended to what date? Well, we want to extend it maybe by the end of by Friday, right? By the end of the week. Which one? Either buyer's investigation of the property, loan, or other. Well, we need to extend the loan. If other, then name and put it here. But in this case, we need to extend the loan contingency, in other words, to obtain loan approval. Any questions when it comes to extending your contingencies? Okay, so yes, so if you know that you need time, okay, or you need to buy some time to the buyer, and the 17 days already have come, right? The day after acceptance, today's day 17, and you cannot meet that contingency, well, right away, I will go ahead and say, get the buyer, request an extension from the seller. Now, does the seller need to approval? Yes or no? Yes. It needs to be a mutual agreement between the parties. Okay, the seller needs to say yes to grant the buyer this extension of contingency. Okay, now same way the seller can say no, your time's up. Now, if they say no, then most likely they will serve you guys with a notice to perform to the buyer, and that's CAR form NBP. Notice to buyer to perform.
Freddy,
Yes, Eddie.
Freddy had a question. Manuelos.
Oh, yes, Freddy.
It's on the chat.
Okay, sorry. Okay, can more than one ETA be used? Yes. You can use as many as you can. Okay. There's no limit when it comes to your ETAs. Now, keep in mind that eventually you might come to the wall, hit the wall in this case, that the seller, you know what? All right, I grant you too many extensions. What's going on? Now, the next step, they might say, you know what? I'll grant you the last extension, Freddy, right? In this case, but now it's going to be a per diem until you close escrow, right? This is the last one. Okay, yeah, I'll give it to you, but now it's going to have consequences. Now, if you want to extend the contingency or the escrow, okay, so this will be a per diem, $50, $100, $150, $200, $1,000, whatever that dollar amount it is, right? Well, guess what? That's going to be your penalty from now on until you close that escrow. Is that fair? Well, it's going to be now up to the buyer to say yes, accept, or withdraw and cancel that escrow.
Is there
Okay.
like a legal cap for that contingency amount?
No, there's something set in stone on Roy. So it's up to the buyer how much he or she would like to charge the buyer for any penalty.
Well, like let's say they're just outrageous, people can be a little bit outrageous and be like, I want 15 grand every day, 20,000. Is there like a legal cap that you can actually
No.
penalize someone? No. Wow.
There's no legal cap.
So if someone really doesn't want to extend it, they could just say, oh, $1 million a day or something ridiculous like that.
Right. Yeah. So, but now you're saying not in those terms. Now we're saying that most likely the seller doesn't want to continue with the sale. Yeah. So most likely the best way, if they don't want to pursue or continue, then if they cannot meet that per diem of $1 million per day, right? Most likely the buyer's going to withdraw and then cancel the escrow and move on, right? But in most cases, Roy, they'll keep it something comparable, within the budget, most likely dependent. It all depends on the actual sales price of their home, because you also want to make sure that buyer removes those contingencies, right? Now, once the buyer removes those contingencies and then they cannot perform, guess what? If they come back and say, well, hey, Roy, we were not able to perform. Well, guess what? Now we're going to go ahead and cancel, and that the 3% is going to go back to the buyer, to the seller's hand, because you were not able to close that transaction. So you got to be smart in both ways as well when it comes to that. Okay. So now going back to the nurse to buyers perform. Okay. This is the actual that yes, you will most likely get if you cannot perform, right, within the time frame. So you guys got to be very careful, right? That just request that extension. Don't just talk it over. Don't send an email. Don't text it. You got to do it the right way, right? Because again, if you don't put it in writing and they don't sign it, say, well, wait a minute, we never give an extension. What are you talking about? Well, yeah, but I sent you an email and you said you replied. It doesn't matter. Whatever the agents reply and agreed on, right? It doesn't relate back to the parties between the buyer and the seller. So for example, Roy, let's say you're helping the seller. I'm helping my buyer. Hey, Roy, between us, hey, brother, can you please help me out, man? I definitely need an extension. I put it in writing, I text you, and you say, okay, yeah, go ahead. Don't worry. We're cool. We're cool, man. Right? But again, you're assuming and taking action on behalf of your seller, and maybe your seller doesn't want to continue.
What extension?
Exactly. What extension? And he's like back to you. Hey, Roy, what's going on? Time frame's up, brother. Why they haven't performed? And what are you gonna say? Well, I gave them time. And who's gonna look bad at you are, brother. So you gotta be careful. Always have it in writing. In real estate, we need to always have something in writing and always have it signed by the parties if it has been mutually agreed between the parties. Okay. So now going back to card form MVP, notice to buyer perform. Yes. Now you can also have more than one as well, right? Keep that in mind. So it all depends what the buyer needs to be removed, right? All of them at once, right? Or it could be as you go, right? So again, it could be the loan, the appraisal, buyer's inspections, investigations, the title preliminary report, HOAs, right? And so on, right? So again, now this is your contingency, this is a contractual action. Maybe, again, it could go from the beginning to the end or also in between. maybe the buyer has 3 business days to bring into escrow their earnest money deposit. And if they don't perform within the 3 business days, then guess what? The seller can give a buyer a notice to perform. Hey, wait a minute. It's day 3 business days. You're supposed to bring the money into escrow today, Tuesday. What's going on? Either perform or we cancel, right? And so on and so on. Okay. So yeah, so go here. The seller will sign it, send it over, right? And it says, buyer, if you do not remove the specified contingencies, car form CR or car form RR, right? And take the specified construction actions indicated above within 2 days, right? Or now you cannot go less than 2 days. It needs to be 2 days or more. Okay. No less than 2 days are specified in this agreement. After delivery of this notice to perform, seller, the key word here is the seller may, okay? It's not will cancel, it's going to cancel. The seller may cancel the agreement, okay? So that word is key in our contracts, okay? The seller may exercise their cancellation rights. Keep that in mind. Or the seller may not cancel as well, but he's giving you the last warning. Okay, either perform or I may cancel the contract, the transaction, the escrow. Or the seller, you know what? Okay, fine then. Take another day. I'm cool. Take a week. I'm cool. Whatever you need, I'm okay. So it's up to the seller. But again, the seller may say, you know what? Forget about it. I'm going to cancel. Okay. So that key here, may cancel. They may not. All right. So it's always gotta play by the book. Okay. So please keep that in mind by always submitting your contingency removal as you go if you want to, or wait to the last moment, request an extension, or you will get a notice to perform from the seller to the buyer to perform. Okay. Now if you cannot close the escrow, okay, you will not get a notice to perform. Okay, you will get a different form, which is car form DCE, the demand to close escrow. Okay, and this is at the end.
Freddy had another question about the per diem.
Yes, sir. I'll be right there. Give me 1 second, Eddie. Thank you. Okay. Okay, in certain cases where the buyer is attending to buy more than time can, okay, in certain cases where buyer is attempting to buy more time, should be a per diem he initiated by the buyer's agent through what form ETA. So there's the form to use for an ETA, Alfredo. You definitely want to use an addendum, car form ADM, okay, to initial a per diem. Okay, but again, the buyer has to approve that per diem as well. Okay, has to be a mutual agreement between the parties, because again, the seller can provide, okay, fine, I'll give you this extension, right? But also I'm attaching a per diem with it. Or you can actually tie it down together, right? For the seller to agree for this extension, right? A per diem is being placed for $100 per day.
Yeah, but he's also asking that if the buyer is attempting to get more time, like to buy some more time, should the buyer's agent initiate the ETA? I'm like, if you were my representing me,
yeah, I wouldn't actually put my buyers against the wall in that case to initial a per diem, unless you know for a fact that if your lifesaver is your last way to get out to get that extension, then yes, you may actually initial that per diem. Okay, Mr. Seller, you know what? In good faith, I'll give you $50 per diem, right, to grant us an extension until we close. Because again, the seller can be adamant and say, no, forget it. Again, you have not performed, you haven't obtained your loan approval. What's going on? That's it. I gave you a notice to perform, right? You haven't performed. Now, if the buyer really wants the property, right, and they have the capital, the cash, right, and their funds to offer an incentive to the buyer, to the seller, then yes, go ahead. And if you know that that's going to help you buy some more time, then yes. But before you go ahead and go out on your own way, speak to the buyer, make sure that he has the funds, the sufficient funds, first of all, to take maybe 30 days, if it takes 30 days, right? Depending on how much you're going to pay more on a daily basis, right? And then you could go ahead and speak to the selling aid, to the seller's agent, right? And propose that that per diem. So again, it can work. Yes, it can work both ways, Freddy, in this case. Okay. So now going back to your demand to close the escrow. Okay. Now keep in mind that buyer like seller, right, had an agreement to close escrow within 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, whatever time that was. Okay. It was set in writing, and they both initial and sign on the purchase contract. Okay. So let's say, for example, we have reached the 30-day mark, right, after the acceptance, and maybe for whatever given reason, the buyer cannot close the escrow. Maybe because they have their home they're selling, right? They're contingent upon selling their home to buy this home, right? Well, guess what? Yes, buyer has to remove all contingencies except for the last one. Well, you reach the 30-day mark. So most likely the seller will give aid to the buyer the demand to close escrow, carved from DCE, right? Again, it goes back to the purchase agreement, right? The date that it was actually written, June 13, property address between the buyer and seller, right? And we had agreed to close on which date? Well, we had agreed to close on, for example, June 30th, right? And they have not closed yet, correct? But now, seller hereby demands the buyer close escrow on the property, right? Within 3 days, but no less than 3 days specified in this agreement after delivery of this demand to close escrow, but no earlier than the agreed upon the close of escrow. Okay, so you cannot demand to close sooner than the actual date of close of escrow. Okay, so say, well, you know, I want to close sooner. No, you can't. You cannot demand to close escrow. You can only demand to close the day after the close of escrow. Okay, but nothing less than 3 days, right? Or B, or by the time, or maybe I want to close by, right, by June. Well, June 4th is actually July 4th is a holiday, so by July 5th. Okay, I'm gonna give you to July 5th to close that escrow right there. Okay, so no, note to buyer, if you do not close the escrow by the end of the time period specified on this demand to close escrow and seller has fully performed, seller may immediately, now there's no may, seller may immediately cancel this agreement, right? Bring legal action against you for damages, including but not limited to deposit, or bring legal action against you to force you to buy the property in specific performance. Okay, you guys remember on the notice to perform, he may or may not, or she may not, right? Right here, there's no may or may not. Right here, immediately cancel this agreement. So if you don't close by July 5th, guess what? I'm going to cancel now. That's it. No more Mr. Nice Guy, Miss Nice Guy. That's it. Game over. That's it. And of course, they could bring what? Legal actions against the buyer for damages, right? Or also may bring legal force, right, to purchase the property as well. Okay, seller sense right there. Now, can the buyer also demand the seller to close escrow? Of course they can as well, right? It works both ways. Okay, now every time you see a little bold line in the middle here, it means there's actually two parts of these pages. Okay, there's a two part to this page. When you see a thick bold line across the page, it's a two part. Okay, it doesn't mean that the buyer needs to sign at the bottom. Okay, regardless if the buyer didn't sign, okay, as long as the seller signed here, that's it. It's a last warning. Okay, now second part to the demand to close the escrow is be given to the buyer to the seller. right? Buyer hereby demands the seller close escrow of the property. Same thing, within 3 days, right? Nothing less than 3 days, or by a specific date. So same thing here, by July 5th, right? And the buyer will sign right here. Now, note to seller, if you do not close escrow by the time period specified in demand to close escrow, and buyer has fully performed, buyer may bring legal actions against you for damages because of breach of contract, right? Bring your legal actions against you to force to the property, specific performance, or both, right? So in case now, what will be the reasons or some reasons why a seller cannot close escrow? Can anybody open their mic or put in the chat box why or what are the reasons why a seller may not be able to perform to close escrow? So let me start sharing real fast and come back to you guys. Why do you guys think the seller cannot perform to close escrow?
Because they're not ready to move.
They're not ready to move. Okay, that could be one of them, but that's not a good bona fide reason to close. They cannot close escrow. They need to close escrow regardless if they're not able to move. Unless, Brenda, unless they have a contingency in play, right? They need to find a replacement
The SPRP.
property. SPRP, exactly. If they have that form in effect, right? Maybe the home they're buying, the replacement property, has not yet closed on the up leg. That could be one of the reasons. And yes, that's correct. But maybe they're renting and they haven't found a rental. That's not a good reason. Any other reason?
Tenants.
Huh?
What about if they have tenants?
That could be, yeah, that could be that breach of contract, right? Because it is stipulated on the RPA or any contract that yes, the property must be vacant upon a close of escrow if the buyers have requested for no tenants to be right to remain in the property. So that could be, yes, that could be another reason why the seller cannot perform to close escrow, because maybe there's tenants in the property. Any other reason?
Did they already say SPRP?
Yes, Brendan did. Huh? The replacement of the property.
What about repairs that they agreed to have taken care of before the close of escrow?
That could be another, yes, repairs, right? Anything the buyer has had negotiated between the buyer and seller, right? To repair or to be done, right? Prior to close of escrow and have it not been done. Yes, that could be a reason.
Raymond said what I thought I was waiting for a better offer on the table, but Raymond just texted it down there. Oh, Raymond, so that's not a reason.
That's not a reason, okay. Raymond. That reason actually has been thrown out the window. That's already too late. And now, if they want to wait for another offer, then most likely they would have to cancel that escrow, but way before, right? Way before. And again, and that's not a reason to cancel the escrow. Okay, you cannot cancel an escrow because you got a better, higher offer than you're currently working right now. They're already in a transaction. So yeah, you cannot do that. You cannot take another offer if you already have a binding contract between the parties. Okay, so yeah, so again, repairs could be one of them, tenancy, and also the replacement of the property. Okay. So now going back to your contingencies, okay. So we know that the buyer has contingencies, right? And we already have discussed which are they. The seller only has one contingency in play. The seller only has one contingency they could be able to cancel or withdraw their binding contract, and that's what Brenda said, the replacement of the purchase of the property, the replacement. Okay, and that's car form SPRP. 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 Seller's purchase of replacement property. Okay, so this is the seller's only contingency they have to use, okay, to cancel for whatever given reason they're not able to perform. Okay, so if you're helping the seller in this case, and they need to find an up leg, okay, a replacement property. So you definitely got to provide to the buyer on your counter offer to let them know, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, right? Just to let you know, my seller needs to find a replacement before we sell this property. If we cannot find a replacement, the upleg, then we can actually proceed and sell this property to the buyer, to you guys. So we cannot find a better home or the home that we want to replace this property, we will not sell this home. Okay, so that's the only contingency the buyer has, the seller has to cancel this transaction. Okay, now also seller has 17 days, right, to find a replacement, or if checked on AC, right, the entire agreement until you find a replacement and close that escrow, right, on the upleg to remove that contingency. So I would definitely say and recommend to you guys, always use seller, right, 1C, the close of replacement property, to remain in effect for that contingency. Because just like the seller gave a buyer to perform, the buyer can also provide a seller to perform to remove this contingency. But if you have 1C checked, you're saying, Mr. Buyer, guess what? My contingency is going to be in full force until I close my escrow on the replacement property that I'm buying. So my contingency is going to be always intact and will never be removed. Now, do you want that as a buyer, Brenda? Bailey?
Unmute.
Unmute yourself, Brenda.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Thank you, my dear. So Brenda,
Okay.
if you see this on a property that your buyers are buying, and they have selected 1C for that contingency to be in full force until the sellers find the replacement, close the replacement to remove the contingency, how would you take this step or this approach to your buyer?
Well, depending on how bad the buyer wants the house, it really depends on the buyer. Because if they
Okay.
want it really bad, then I would ask them, are you in a hurry to move? Because if they're not in a hurry to move, then they could wait until, or they could it's a form, I forget the name of the form, but you could give them a certain amount of time, or you could rent to them, or.
Oh, the rent back? Yes.
Yeah.
The SIP, well, if it's 29 days or less, okay, 29 days or less, card form SIP, seller and possession.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay. If it's 30 days or more, then it's card form RLAS, rent, lease, after sale. Okay. SIP, 29 days or less, 30 days or more, RLAS. Go, Brenda, you're saying?
Yes, I'm staying.
Okay. So you're saying that if the buyers are not anxious to move into, right? But now let's say that the seller is taking their sweet time to find a replacement. And right now it's very competitive still, right? And they cannot find a replacement, Brenda. It takes 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. How much time would the buyer wait and be pretty much on their back waiting for them to close that escrow? And what happened that they never find a replacement, and the sellers, they gave up. You know what, Brenda, we tried, we did everything we can on our hands. Keep on, we're contingent upon selling this property because we need the funds to close this property to buy the upleg. How much time would the buyer wait?
Not that much longer. I mean, they probably move on and cancel and, or notice to perform, or, I mean, right. I don't think they would really wait like too long, because if, most buyers are excited when they see a home and they really want the home, and when they're in escrow and they're about to close, they are excited, like, this is about to be my home, right? So most of the time they're not going to want to wait
Right.
too long.
So how would you counter this? How would you counter this back on a counter offer from the buyer on the BCO? Buyer's counter offer. How would you put this in writing for the seller to remove that contingency?
The wording, that's the one thing I always get stuck on, because I'm always asking people, how do you word it? But
So I would say seller has 17 days after acceptance to remove their contingency of replacement property. That's it.
okay, I have 17 days. Oops.
So seller has 17 days to remove the seller's the seller's purchase of replacement property to be removed within 17 days. Now, if they don't want to sign it, right, or they counter you back on that contingency for the seller, right, then most likely you let your buyers be aware, look, they're not willing to sign off on the contingency for 17 days. They want the entire period of the escrow to close. Then your buyers will have to decide to stay or to move on to the next home. Is that fair? All right, so it's 10:50. I'm gonna stop real fast because again, any Q&A, any other questions that we have, because again, I do have to end my class short today. I do apologize. Any Q&A, any questions so far on the contingencies going on the extensions from the buyer to the seller on the demand to close escrow? Any questions so far? Yes, Brenda.
Yeah, on this last form,
Yes.
SPRP, is it always 17 days?
Well, not always, Brenda. If you notice here, okay, but well, it depends which letter you select. Either if you leave it on A1, you're saying by 17 days, right? The seller will go ahead and remove that contingency of replacement property. But if you go to or, right, or you go 1C, you're saying the seller will be contingent upon full force until they find the replacement and then close the replacement purchase as well. So it could remain in effect until they find the replacement and close that escrow on the up leg.
Freddy.
Yes, Ruben.
So there is no limit. You can go and change it to 60 days, 90 days, whatever, or there is a limit.
Well, right here, right on 1C, there's no limit.
No,
on
I know.
1A,
Yeah.
On 1A, you could go 30 days.
That's it?
That or whatever time you want.
Oh, so you can go higher than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
96 again, whatever time you need. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, but again, but the default is 17 days, right? To remove the contingency, or 30 days, 60 days, whatever time you want, right? Or just leave it until they close that escrow.
Right. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop right there. And let's see. Yes, please answer my question. Okay. Answer my previous question regarding payment after cancellation.
Can I take that one?
Huh?
Freddy's talking about that. How could he get like secure payment from the buyer if he put in a lot of work and then it's a high risk of it being canceled? And I go, if you have already started the transaction without having a BRE signed, getting a BRE signed at a later date, it's almost impossible, right, Freddy?
Yes. And the BRE is the buyer's exclusive agreement between the buyer and the buyer's agent. That is your binding contract that you actually have tied them to you, that if they buy with someone else, right, they will pay you commission, regardless if they buy with someone else. Okay. So in other words, you're saying that you're their buyer's agent and you're gonna represent them on the purchase.
Yeah, and the BRE also stipulates that if it's like the fault of the buyer, that they rescind or get out cancel, that they would still owe you the compensation.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Any other questions before we finish our training for today, folks? Brenda, you're muted, Brenda, again.
When working with sellers and you trying to, and there you like say you're representing the seller, and they are trying to sell their home and find a replacement home.
Yes.
isn't it a good idea to get them pre-approved for their loan for the replacement property before listing the home, so it could be a little smoother?
Sometimes don't they do like a 1031 exchange? So
Um,
if they have one home, if the seller has one home, they're trying to get another home.
that's only for property that are investment properties, Roy, and so it doesn't apply
Oh,
for. It doesn't apply for primary residence. Only for
Oh, it
investment
doesn't?
properties.
So like, let's
Isn't
say I
there
wanted
something
to.
that's called like a bridge loan?
Yes. So let me go back to Brenda, and I'll go back to Roy and to Rodrigo. So Brenda, yes, you definitely want to make sure that your buyers, I'm sorry, your sellers are fully pre-approved or getting approved. Now, you might take a risk or a chance that if they're not fully approved or they're not able to obtain a loan on the up leg, most likely you will lose that listing, which is better to lose it right now than work on it, at it, right? And then at the last moment, you know what, Brenda? We couldn't qualify for our
Right.
replacement. And then you're gonna cancel the listing and then it goes all sour, which you don't want. So always be kind. You know what? I definitely want to help you. I want to take your listing, but let's do this. Let's do our homework first. Let's see if you're able to obtain a loan for the upleg with the proceeds that are coming from the escrow to the purchase. Now, because maybe they have bad credit, right? Maybe they have something
Right.
wrong that they can actually buy a property. Yeah, they could sell all day long, right? And they have the equity, but they cannot buy because they have some sort of collections or delinquencies on the credit report. And they have really low FICO scores as well. Now, if they have somebody else can help them to buy their up leg, then move on. Yes, get a cosigner. But if they don't, then you know what? Don't get greedy. You know what? Don't say, well, I could help you. Let's put the house in the market. No, please don't. Just don't. Okay. Now going back to Rodrigo. So Rodrigo, those 1031 exchanges is only for investment properties.
Oh, okay, because I thought it was like, okay, you if you wanted as a residential property, you wanted to get a bigger residential property, that was one way to defer your taxes by doing a
Yes,
1031.
you
I didn't know
can,
it was
again.
only primarily for just investment property.
Correct. Yeah. So if it's primary residence, it doesn't apply. Now,
Okay.
now the only thing you want to avoid any penalties or any capital gains, that homeowner must be there, must be living there more than 2 years to the date. So to avoid capital gains, the homeowner must live there more than 2 years to the date. Okay, you cannot sell before or in to sell after, right? So if they move in, for example, today on June 21st, they could close on June 22nd, 2024. Okay, to avoid any penalties, any capital gains. For a single person, it's 250,000 up to, right, up not payment, right? And for a married couple, it's up to 500,000. Okay. Now, Rodrigo, you're saying
Bridge loan.
bridge loans, yes. So when it comes to bridge loans, yes, our company, we have what is called a MAP program, right? That we're able to actually help our sellers, right, obtain a bridge loan. Maybe they're actually instead of actually being contingent upon selling their home, right? We could actually upfront the money to them. Look, here's the money. If of course, as long as they have enough equity, right, in their home, then yes, we could provide a bridge loan on the property, right? So we'll give them the money up front, so you can actually sell and close that escrow, all right, or be on the new up leg on the replacement property. Here's the money, the down payment, whatever you need. But once you close your escrow, then you pay us back, and that's your bridge loan. Okay. Very good questions, folks. So again, any other questions you guys have? Anybody else? You good?